Oh, who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest version of the Wolves Fancast. I'm here today to review the Everton game, which took place yesterday, and also a bit of a preview ahead to the game against Shrewsbury on Saturday. I'm Greg, and I'm your host for tonight, and I'm delighted to welcome Alex, Tom, and Ali, who will be going through this with me. Thank you, gents, for your attendance tonight, and thank you to everyone who's joining us on the stream as we go through. Right, let's get into it. Wolves' first game at the new Everton Stadium resulted in a 1-1 draw. We're going to go into that now. Obviously, a game with a little incident, shall we say, a few things to discuss and get into and look forward at. A lot of incident, a lot of things there, and we'll go through them in due course. First thing we'll do is we'll start with looking at was the team selection, which, in my opinion, picked itself, given the performance at the weekend. But I'd be keen to get the thoughts of the guys here, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. So, Alex, first of all, hello. Welcome onto the show. I know you haven't been on for a while, so it's great to have you back. Thank you for joining us. Thoughts on the team sheet? Is it as I suggested? Was that what you were expecting? Same team following on from the victory against West Ham, or would you have been tempted, or would you have seen potentially some changes coming in?
I don't suppose you can't change a winning team, can you? And we've not had that problem for a long time. So, yeah, I wouldn't expect anything different, to be honest. And I was surprised to see Lima come back in, but now we've seen that Keanu Hoover's just gone out on loan to Sheffield United. That was probably space for him. But yeah, I didn't expect anything different, and you can't change a winning team. So it was nice to see a bit of consistency for a while.
You just mentioned Hoover. Do you think that's the right call? I mean, obviously time will tell in terms of Lima's performances. We haven't seen a lot of him in the first team. Do you think that is the right call for Hoover? Obviously, he's not had a very good season. He's been obviously received the wrath of a lot of Wolves fans, and quite rightly so. Do you think that's probably the right call to get him out to pastures new and actually see what Lima can offer?
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, it's been a bit difficult one, hasn't it, really? It's just been whoever's not been as bad as the other one. Yeah. So hopefully he gets a good loan deal towards the end of the season, and hopefully he gets to move away. I don't know how long he's got left on his contract, but he sort of hopefully he gets a good 6 months, and then Sheffield United might pick him up. But yeah, he needs it, doesn't he, really? Because he has been a bit of a, no matter how bad he's played, he's never going to win the fans over, is he? So it's a bit of a difficult one for him, really. But hopefully, I mean, Lima's not exactly played many games at Porto, has he, or Porto B?
No, I think he's at about 8 or 9. I think, if I remember correctly. So
but he's still very young, isn't he? And I suppose they've got their own players to bleed in as well. So, yeah. Look forward to seeing him back, to be honest. And obviously, hopefully the experience has helped him.
Yeah. Well, I think where we are now as a team, I think he needs to be given an opportunity. I think there's no reason why he can't. Like you quite rightly said, Alex, we've not exactly been blessed with wing backs that have performed well this season. And so he's the next one available, and he deserves a shot, in my opinion, to move that forward. I guess from your perspective, Tom, like I said, same team. There was obviously some talk about potentially with Andre coming back in, potentially being away from home, being a bit more solid. Was that something you were potentially expected to see, or were you happy that we were continuing to maintain the same team?
No, I thought it was going to be the 11 that ultimately started. There was just that slight question mark on Gomez, whether he came off with an injury or not. I'm assuming he did, based on, obviously the fact he started again yesterday. So, yeah, it picked itself, I think. Although I think maybe Andre's performance, not that he was brilliant, but maybe Arias's performance last night Edwards might then favour, the sort of two holders, or having Andre sitting and just trying it again, but with Mane more central, and see if that works. I'm not saying drop Arias after a bad 45 minutes, but he didn't do himself any favours yesterday with his performance, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's true, and we can certainly come on to that as we go. I guess for you, Ali, one of the things that's here is that we've now got to as far as the Wolves are concerned, a bit of a settled backline as well. So, we're playing. We seem to have chopped and changed at least one defender on most games. This has obviously now been another occasion where we've maintained the same back five on the goalkeeper. Do you think that's important? Do you think that's contributing towards the general uplifting in performances, particularly when we've been struggling defensively all season?
Yeah, I think it's definitely helped. I mean, I think we were all sort of, when Sarr came back in, that was a bit of a surprise at the time.
Yeah.
But he hasn't put a foot wrong since he has come back in. And then with the back three, I mean, I think away at Man United, obviously Doherty came in and played that central role.
Yeah.
But I think that was probably more out of sort of lack of any other option. And he played very well that game.
Yeah.
And then when we had the West Ham game at home, I suppose that was one of the decisions, wasn't it? Whether Doc would stay where he was. I think he's got some sort of niggle, or this just feels just you get sort of an impression, don't you, that he's not 100% fit. I think Santi Bueno actually over the course of the season hasn't necessarily done a lot wrong when he's played. He may have played more than he expected, but he's come out of the team at times, didn't he? He came out of the team when Edwards joined. But had otherwise done okay, hadn't he? He sort of formed the back four with Krejci. I agree. I think that back three looks quite settled, and other than set pieces, which we'll get onto, that Everton had yesterday, I felt like they look pretty solid, and it looks balanced, doesn't it? You've got a left-footed, good footballing, Krejci, Bueno, good footballer. Occasionally can be muscled off things, but he's clear. He clearly is a good defender, and Mosquera can make up for it because he does get stuck in and shithouses his way around. So it's got a nice sort of balance to it. So yeah, I think that would be I think those three now, I won't say they pick themselves, but I think in the absence of us, having a really poor game, those three look fairly settled now, and that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. I think, like you say, there's a nice personality styles mix within that back three as well, so they're not very robotic, which I think is good. And talking about Doherty, obviously, he's been, I noticed, and I'm sure you have, he was strapped on his knees quite heavily, or around his knees, a couple of times when I've seen him play recently. So that, I think your statement around him kind of carrying injuries, I think is correct. I think he's probably not at 100%. And if you've got a player that's 100%, then I think that's probably a better way to go at the moment.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens post AFCON with Agbadou, because again, he'd actually started to come into a bit of form. Yeah. So I think that will be a decision for Edwards. Does he come straight back in? He made a comment, didn't he? Sort of Bueno had come out and he understood why, because it was particular opposition. That's why Agbadou played. That might be an interesting, another interesting dilemma for him to deal with. But yeah, I would see no reason to be dropping any of those three at the moment. But likewise, as I said, Doherty didn't do anything wrong, but he just, as you see the strapping, you sort of suspect he's probably carrying something.
Yeah, absolutely. So looking at obviously the lineups and the way they were structured, we obviously were going for and again, this was what was presented on the website, kind of a 5-3-2, 3-5-2. I think it was probably a bit more fluid than that. I think Mane was probably drifting a bit more upwards, and he kind of floats a bit more. Everton was in kind of more of a 4-3-3 style here as well. But again, with that flexibility, certainly Grealish wasn't playing as in the front piece. I commented around the two young midfielders, Garner, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce his surname. Apologies for those of you listening and not viewing. Rugbanen. And I thought that could potentially be an area where we could get, I think their back line is again, talking about settled back lines, their back four and the goalie pretty much a standard. Obviously Tarkowski and Keane have been together for a number of seasons now, playing together. Do you think, I guess question I'm going to, Alex, for you is, do you think our shape and the way set up actually probably supports away performances better maybe than home performances, would you say? Or,
pretty much.
Or is it just consistent?
There's a little bit less pressure, isn't it? And I think you've seen the last few games as well. we've looked a lot stronger away from home than we have at home, apart from on Saturday, obviously. So it does give us a little bit of fluidity. And I don't know, Molineux's not a great place to be at the minute, is it? Apart from Saturday, obviously. So I suppose the players do play with a little bit more freedom as well. So, I mean, everybody, I think first half, which we'll get on to, that looks a little bit confused to me, to be honest. And then you kind of a little bit static. So I don't know if that was kind of a setup to just slow the game out and come out in the second half. But yeah, I mean, it's slowly getting better, isn't it? And this seems a lot more comfortable now. And there's more, looks okay so far.
Okay, agree. From your perspective, Tom, would you tweak looking at the formation right at the moment? Are you happy with that as a kind of a standard formation? Appreciate that mine is probably slightly different and there's probably an in possession and out of possession variance. Are you kind of happy with that as the kind of the setup of the lineup, kind of like as Alex has said, or would you look to try and tweak it potentially?
No, I don't mind it. I don't mind the formation. Actually, I've never minded three at the back. I never really massively understood the clamour to play this four at the back when three at the back was always worked for us reasonably well. Obviously, this season apart. I've got no issue with the system. It's just certain players within that system. I think more so than anything. Unfortunately, I think, for example, Hwang. Yeah. He's just the pro. He's the right profile. I just don't think he's the right player ultimately. But we don't have anyone else close to that in the squad currently. Whether that'll change in the coming weeks, time will tell. I've got no problem with the shape. It seems to work reasonably well. I think whether he will look at putting Andre in at the expense of, well, it won't be Mane, let's face it, it'll be Arias for our away performances, just to solidify a little bit. But I think generally, defensively, over the last, maybe 5, maybe even 6 games, particularly away from home, we've actually looked pretty good. I think I saw some stat that we've got the lowest XG against, I think, over the last sort of 6 or 7 games, which, considering the position that we're in and the results that we've been getting, was pretty startling, really, in a good way. So I think it's just finding that, the ability to cause other teams problems up front, which I think will turn defeats into draws and draws into wins going forward.
Yeah, I agree. And then I guess for you, Ali, one of the things I'd like you to give me your thoughts on is the left wing back position, because I think that's one that's been an area of interest. So again, would you change anything tactically? But also, would like you to let me know: do you think Hugo's, performances are keeping him in the team? Is Mola Wolf unfortunate to be still out, or how would you see that? First of all, are you happy with the tactics as Alex and Tom are? And I'd like to get your thoughts in particular on that kind of left wing back role, because I think that's an area potentially where there has been some challenges.
Yeah, I mean, like anything, isn't it? The trick is to find the formation that fits the players you've got, and it may be that we've kind of stumbled across this because players being unavailable. We played away at Man U, and this was the formation he played, and I think we all were sort of taken aback, going, this will be interesting to see how this goes, sort of with Mane and Arias around Gomez. But it's actually worked, and it's the best probably we've looked all season. There's always been sort of that debate around, can Gomez and Andre play together? I suspect they probably can, but it hadn't been working. And that formation against United worked, and there was no reason to change it going into West Ham. We then win our first game of the season definitely playing the best we've played. So it feels like it's a formation that should work for us, because we have got sort of, if you think about the players who aren't playing at the moment, I suppose, rather than the ones who are, you've got a back three there that's always worked. We've actually quite well sort of stocked at the back. So you've got, Totti and Agbadou to come back, Doc, who can play right centre-back or centre-back if he needs to. In the midfield, you could easily imagine Bellegarde or even Manetzi coming into that 3. You can imagine Andre coming into that 3 as he did. So it does feel like it works. It feels like there's actually that's a shape that complements the players we've got. I suppose down the left-hand side with Bueno and Mola Wolf, interested to hear the other lads' views, but I don't sort of have a massive sort of preference between Wolf and Bueno.
Yeah,
I think they do offer different things. I think Bueno is a better crosser of the ball and is better at sort of getting to the byline and whipping balls in. Moller Wolf feels a bit more just of an all-rounder, I suppose. Very tidy in possession, doesn't do a lot wrong, but doesn't excite me as much going forwards. He has had some good games this season, but I was surprised when Bueno came back in the team because I didn't think Wolf had done anything wrong to come out, and I was surprised that he came in against Liverpool because that was I just felt that was an odd game that Bueno actually started. Because I felt like he was a kind of an impact sub almost, bring him on when we need something. Yeah. But he hasn't. But he's played really well, and certainly against West Ham on Saturday, he was fantastic. I thought he was really good. And then yesterday, again, he played well. He's really tidy in possession. He seems to complement Krejci well. And he's now added that other element that he's not just sort of trying to you can be a one-trick pony, can't you? Throw a step over, go down the line, and it gets a bit predictable, and Premier League defenders get onto it. It's nice that he's actually dropped a shoulder, come inside, and had it not been for a world-class save, he would have won the game for us yesterday. So I've got no issue with Bueno at the moment. I think he's having a good run. Whether I'd start him on Saturday is a different question because of the opposition, but I think he's made for now. It feels like he's made that place his own.
Thank you. Yeah, I think so, Ali. I guess from your perspective, Tom, I guess what I'd want to say, do you think Hugo's one of those players that needs a run of games? That he's a player that needs to kind of build and get into it rather than, like, as Ali said, he's been kind of more of an impact player, someone we've tried to bring in to try and bring a bit of energy and impetus into the game later on. Do you think that because he's now getting a run of games, he's building the confidence and the patterns of plays? And as Ali quite rightly called out, not only last night, but in the West Ham game, where obviously he did a similar thing, not as spectacular a shot or save, I hasten to add, but he's cutting in and offering an option, cutting in and not just going around and whipping balls in. Do you think that's the case?
Yeah, I think it's the same with a lot of players, isn't it? They do need a run of games really to so you know what they're actually all about. And to be fair, Wolf was doing that. He started very, very slowly, but then he had a run of games and he was looking half decent. And like Ali says, it was a surprise and almost a disappointment that he got taken out of the team because I think he ended up looking pretty good. And it's just a shame that we've got two looks to be pretty competent left-sided players, and we've got absolutely nothing on the other side, unfortunately, to mirror that, which is just really frustrating because you're leaving a pretty half decent player on the bench because you can't fit him into your system. But I've been really impressed with Brennan the last two games in particular because I've never been 100% sold on him, but I think defensively he's got better, and he's absolutely offering us something now which we've not had from the wing backs all season. We've spoken about that at length on this show before, and he looks a threat both from an assist and even a goals point of view, as the last two games have showed. So he deserves his place at the moment. It's his shirt to lose.
Perfect. Going into the game, obviously, and Rob talked about this in the warm-up in his post-match interview, that they felt the players weren't really at it and stuff. And it seemed a bit of I think lethargic's probably a strong word, maybe passive is probably a better option. We didn't seem to start the game with the tempo that we would have liked. It did seem quite passive. What were your thoughts, Alex, in terms of that, the start of the game, so the first 10 or 15, how do you think we settled in? How do you think we got ourselves into the game?
I thought it's probably back to normal, to be honest. Okay. I thought we've had a flash in the pan at the weekend, and then it's sort of back to normal. Everything that the problems we've seen, you kind of think you could see within the first 10, 15 minutes. Everybody looked static. Nobody was looking for each other. And then, it just looks, here we go again, type of thing, back to normal. Yeah. And then obviously they started to grow into the game. But within the first half, and obviously we got to this half time, I just thought, it's not great, to be honest. And with how the result, obviously we all got our hopes up, didn't we, at the weekend? Yeah. And thinking results kind of went our way, and then you're thinking, well, results haven't gone our way this midweek fixture. You're thinking, okay.
So what do you think the reasons for that were? Like we've just talked about, we've had a decent few away performances. We had our first win of the season and a clean sheet, at home. Yes, it was against a very struggling West Ham team who were in dire straits as well. So, it wasn't, it was a fixture we would look at as even where we are as a potential winning fixture. So what do you think of the reasons? Rob kind of suggested it was kind of like the fact they've been working in training and there's been a flurry of games and that's kind of had the opportunity. Would you say that's a valid reason, or would you see something else maybe?
I don't know. They had the day off on Sunday, didn't they? If I watched the video correctly.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe there is a bit of fatigue, but then you can't change a winning team, can you? Like we said earlier, we haven't had that problem for ages, so you have to really start that 11 from Saturday. So maybe it is a little bit of fatigue, and you could change a few. I'd like to see Mane given a bit of a rest on Saturday because he was just kicked about in the first half. To be honest, it was obviously a plan from Moyes to sort of, get at him and make him uncomfortable. And you could see that really become a bit standoffish. And every time he got the ball, it was pretty much if a foul or near enough a foul on him. So you'd like to see a few change, and obviously maybe Wolf come in on Saturday. But they did look a bit leggy, to be honest. And you think maybe it is because of the busy Christmas period. But then that's what squads are for, aren't they? You're going to manage the squad a little bit better.
Absolutely. Ali, we're going to move on to the first goal from Keane, coming in set piece goal, really. Your thoughts on that? I'm particularly keen to get your perspective on how we set up for corners. Are we setting ourselves up properly defensively, do you feel? Or is it just one of those that Everton have exploited one of their strengths and we weren't able to deal with it? What was your perspective on the goal?
Yeah, it felt like to me that the only way Everton were actually going to score was from a set piece. And they're clearly strong at that. And knowing a lot of Everton fans as I do, unfortunately, they describe Michael Keane as their best striker this season. And he probably has been. It felt to me like it's one of those where it's probably more important that you win the first ball, because the goal really comes from somebody mishitting a shot that just sort of goes directly to Keane, and all he does is put a foot on it and direct it towards the goal. It's hard to defend that sort of second phase if you don't win the first ball. And if you're, and we had, I think it was the lad whose name I'm now not going to pronounce because his name isn't even on the screen, but the central midfielder who hit the shot, sort of, I think it was him. And, he'd skewed it. It was going nowhere near the goal where he meant it to, but it happened to go directly to Michael Keane, who all he had to do was sort of put a foot on it and it went in. I'm not saying it was a lucky goal, but it was more just sort of the initial defending of it probably wasn't quite good enough. And that was the issue, and the fact that he was left completely unmarked to have a go at hitting that shot meant that it could have gone anywhere, and it just happened to go to an Everton player who could just knock it in. I think that was the only threat they really. I mean, the first half was pretty dreary, but that was sort of the threat that Everton were offering. Obviously, however long later, Keane then hit the post, didn't he, from another set piece that he'd whipped in. It felt to me that was part of their tactic, was give it to Grealish, get him fouled, get a set piece and chuck it in the box and see how we go. And I think otherwise I don't know the stats on it. Otherwise, I don't feel like we've been weak from set pieces this season. I don't know if I picked up that maybe Bueno could be stronger. I don't know if Bueno was marking Keane for the one where he hit the post. I think he was, because I saw it on the screen coming back when I was there. And I felt like, you've been a bit weak. He kind of, it was one of those where he got pushed down, and I felt, come on, Bueno, be a bit. You've got to be against Everton and against a Michael Keane. You've got to just be stronger than that. You've got to stand up and you've got to win that ball. You can't let him do that to you. So, yeah, I felt it's not a great goal to concede, is it? Because it's from a set piece, but I'm sort of low to be overly critical of them, because other than not winning the first ball, a few things then had to happen for it to end up in the back of our net. I was probably more concerned of the Keane header then hitting the post and thinking, this is becoming a bit of a pattern now.
That's the exact question I'm going to ask you, Tom. Is it the fact, though, that the bigger concern is not that we conceded the goal to Keane, but that we may not have learnt our lesson after that and gone, right, actually, we need to deal with this guy. He's the big threat. He's the one we're going to play, and we need to be stronger up against him. Would that not be a bigger concern? I think you're right, Ali. terms of the general course of the game. And I think that was the pattern of play that they were going to work towards, which I think is very David Moyes, full stop, generally, irrespective of the club. But would you see that as something we need to develop? You know, there's a lot of things we need to work on, but is that one of the things that we need to get sharper on as a team?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been the story of our season, hasn't it, that we haven't really learned from mistakes, whether it be in the same game or the game before. I think that the setup, you touched on the setup in your question to Ali, which there's some of the man marking's a bit peculiar for me. I think I noticed in the West Ham game they had Chachua on Souček, which I found just bizarre. The only thing Souček does is score headed goals, and to have. I don't think Chachua is particularly good in the air. I mean, I've not really, particularly when you consider the other brutes that we've got in the side. And I think he was on. I think he might have even been on Tarkowski or someone yesterday. It was. I remember watching it and thinking he's not up against the right man again. So yeah, I think there might be a little bit of work to be done there. But again, I don't think there's been necessarily a pattern really. This season, Sarri's generally claiming a few more balls. Sometimes he sort of ends up in a bit of no man's land, but we take Sarri as he comes, I think. But anything that we could do better, obviously I'm all for.
Yeah. Alex, going into half time, obviously it was 1-0. What were your thoughts in terms of the substitutions that Rob decided to make? Obviously there was a couple of changes you made. What was your perspective? Well, there was Andre, and then obviously going into Strat Larson. What was your perspective on that? Do you think that was the right call based on the performance of the first half?
I mean, it wasn't working, was it? So he had to try and find something different.
Yeah.
And I thought, obviously, that seems to be his go-to now. Is when we're sort of looking at the end, he's to put the two up front. I mean, I thought I don't want to throw him under the bus because he didn't necessarily do anything wrong, but I didn't feel like Wang offered much. But then he kind of looked to the bench and you think, well, there's nothing really to bring on. Yeah. I mean, last time we saw Fer Lopez, I thought he was pretty poor, to be honest. You got to take it with a pinch of salt that he's not had much game time. But you're kind of thinking, well, he's the next option, isn't he, now, if Wang doesn't play. So, yeah, but I mean, Arias didn't really set the lights up, so that wasn't really working. And then, like you say, can you play? It's a Gerrard and Lampard or Gerrard and Scholes conundrum, isn't it, really? Can you play Andre and Joe Gomez together? Because Gary O'Neill pretty much had the same as well, didn't he? He wouldn't play the two of them together, and we had Lamina, so you're trying to shoehorn three similar players in, and sometimes it doesn't always work. So, yeah, much needed changes, to be honest. But yeah, at half time I was probably thinking, Everton weren't great. We're making players like Joe Garner look like good players.
Yeah,
and making players like Tarkowski look like elite level defenders when they're not really. They're average Premier League players.
Yeah. Well versed in the dark arts of the Premier League, which I'm sure we'll come on to shortly. But good perspective. Ali, for you, what did you find your first trip, obviously, to the new stadium, as all of ours? I unfortunately wasn't there, but certainly was Wolves. Thoughts on the ground, and also thoughts on the atmosphere, both from the Everton fans' perspective, but also from the Wolves fans, particularly as I know you've been to a few of the other away games recently. How did you feel that was?
Yeah, the ground's too good for them. That's for sure. I mean, I have to say, I find it. I'm probably biased because of the amount of shit I get from Everton fans over the year. But I think it's one of the great football myths about the atmosphere at Goodison Park. That is a football myth. That was not a good atmosphere at that ground. Any Wolves fan who's been there will tell you that. And it's nice to see that's transferred to the new ground. It's very impressive. It is far too nice for them. It's a very impressive ground from the outside. It's good. It's well worth a visit. Long time to queue for food. If I'd had food at half time, I'd still be queuing now. I'm pretty sure. Wow. But you get a pint from one of those little sort of magic machines that gets a Guinness or a whatever it was. A lot of the lager option was out of it. So yeah, it's got all those kind of mod cons. But atmosphere wise, it's amazing to have 50,000+ in there and to create so little noise or atmosphere. I think I've watched the first couple of games Everton had, or the ones that were on the telly, and they kind of, on the telly, it's like anything, it sounds better than it is in person, whether the mics had been turned up or something. But I don't know what it sounded like on the telly, but I could not hear anything from the Everton fans at all, really. There was, other than for the goal, there was nothing. The away end was, I think that the first half was so flat. Edward said the team felt flat. It felt a little bit flat, I suppose, in the away end in the first half because the performance was flat.
Yeah.
But it wasn't bad, so to speak. And I think there was still a degree of optimism and sort of, come on, we're better than these. We're a better team than we've been showing. And then second half, I thought it was very good. And at the end, people, were even though we should, we'll come on to it. We probably should have got 3 points. It wasn't sort of dejection at the end. I think it was, we appreciated the effort the lads had put in. So yeah, I think it was pretty good in the away end. It was certainly better than it was in the home end from what I could see.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty low bar.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Tom, I mean, you watched the game. I think you mentioned that you could definitely hear the Wolves fans singing. So, just want to loop you in and give you your perspective.
Yeah. The Wolves fans sounded loud, as they have been in the last few games, really. United in particular, but you could hear them, and it was packed. You could see it on there. I mean, anything was better than listening to the commentary last night. I mean, for you guys that were at the game, I mean, I've never heard such biased commentary in all my life. And how
was it Leon Osmond?
It was unbelievable. Like, honestly, I mean, I'm sure, other people thought the same. It couldn't have just been me. I've never heard such biased commentary, even like Carragher on Liverpool games or Neville on United games. It was another level. It was insane. Like the defences of Keane, the Tarkowski elbow in the face that was just a little coming together, and all this sort of bollocks that they were spouting. Honestly, if you get a chance to watch any of the game back with that commentary, you're in for a treat.
Yeah, but I think it's something we've been used to over the years. Sky in particular don't provide neutral commentators and commentary teams. And therefore it generally works against us. I mean, we're the exception, because we obviously sometimes back in the Championship had Don Goodman, and he was more critical than neutral. I used to find he was to express his frustration. So yeah. Moving on then to obviously the what I'll call the magic moment. Another goal for Matheus Cunha, 2-2. A great touch, first touch and finish. Your thoughts, obviously you were there, Alex, your thoughts on the goal? There were a couple of people that, I mean, you said about him being a bit tired and obviously been subjected to a bit of the rough stuff. Your perspective on the goal?
Well, he's a great pass from Larson as well, wasn't it? I mean, a lot of our gameplay is pretty much down the wing, a few step overs from Bueno, and then Chachua just passing it back to Larson. So, yeah, it was nice to see us go down the middle and try something different, but it's a great touch and great finish. I mean, I was pretty much right next to their fans behind the goal, and the way he sort of bent it in, you kind of think, from the angle I was at, thinking I was going to hit the post. The way he just crept in the corner, you think that's a great finish. That's a great finish. So, yeah, he looks full of confidence as well, wants the ball all the time. So, yeah, it's great. Great to have something fresh in the team.
Yeah, I agree. Tom, just building on from Alex's point there, Rob made quite a big point in his post-game presser about the assist from Jurgen, and that there was a quality ball into Mane, and that was the impact he was able to have. What were your thoughts, first of all, on the assist, and second of all, on Jurgen's performance? Again, he's obviously swapped now with Tolu as the player that's coming off the bench to try and impact games. What was your perspective, firstly, on the assist, but also on JSL's performance generally?
Assist was really good, got in a really good area, nice touch and fantastic pass. It's only taken him like 20 games, hasn't it, to do something positive this season. So well done, Jurgen. But no, fair enough. Yeah, he did well. I mean, the movement from Mane is brilliant, though. When's the last time we had a central midfielder make that sort of run I haven't seen it this season. I couldn't, maybe even not last season either. Manetzi, maybe. But yeah, the run was fantastic. And yeah, to all due respect to Larson, it was an excellent find. And I didn't think anything other than goal when he had the ball at his feet. And I can't think of the last player I thought of that, probably Cunha. So that was good. Yeah, hopefully, it's put a rod of Larson that, he's lost his place basically and Tolu, although he's not had the goal output that we would maybe hope for or that he would hope for, but his impact on the team has been excellent in my opinion, and he won much more balls than he lost last season against two notoriously strong aerial defenders. It was just us picking up the second balls. I think that was letting us down first half. It's not that he wasn't winning them; he just didn't get anyone around him. And he showed himself to be a real menace in the box. So, if that's what it takes for Larson to pull his finger out, then so be it.
I don't know if you noticed on Saturday when Larson came on, he was trying really hard to win a header, and you're thinking, well, normally you can't be asked, and now it's like he's trying to get into Tolu's way to win a header. You're thinking, I think you've got to try a little bit more to win the fans over than that. And he still didn't win the header.
I think he won one and we got a big cheer. I think if I remember correctly, which is always entertaining. Ali, Tom's just talked about Tolu. I'd like to get your thoughts on Tolu's impact. And also, do you feel that he's actually, like Tom's just kind of said, although he's not scoring goals, the fact he's winning flick-ons and headers and making a presence for himself is encouraging players like Mane to kind of get up the pitch because they know. And there were a couple of times I know where they were playing quite well together. Tolu was laying off to Mane, and I think there was one that was like a shoulder pass and some other bits and pieces. So, do you think that's a good relationship we've got building there? I'd really be keen to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's kind of the bare minimum you ask of a striker to sort of hold it up and be a nuisance. We don't know to what extent players had sort of decided with Larson that there's no point trying to get up there with him because the ball just won't stick. But it never stuck, did it? We can see that from watching it. It never stuck. And he's, 6'4". He's a big lad. He should, as a bare minimum, as a professional footballer who's a striker, should have some ability to hold the ball up. And he was just incapable of doing it. Tolu, for whatever his weaknesses are, has been doing it and has been laying it off, and even if he just wins it and flicks it on, he pushes them back. And as you said, Mane is clearly more encouraged to go up there with him. Arias and a couple of the wingers are as well. I think there was one in the first where he flicked it on to sort of Tachiura or something. He even gambled on it because he knew he's probably going to win this and flick this on. So I'm going to gamble for the ball into space. So he's made a massive difference. The game, I mean, as you said, going to the odd away game recently, away at Man United, the minute Tolu went off, the difference was like quite startling. In a game we actually played well, but the minute he went off, we had no outlet. And it's ridiculous because we brought a number 9 on. So we brought a supposedly 40, 50 million pound striker on, but we had no outlet because he can't hold the ball up. And so whatever whatever Tolu's weaknesses are, and he hasn't necessarily got the goals to show for it. He's effective in what he's doing, and on that alone, he starts. And it's for Larson to. I mean, he's not going to break his way in, is he? Because he's going to go by the time that happens, isn't he, Greg?
Yeah, I think so. I think for me, Tolu brings a net positive contribution to the team, and that's the way we've got to look at things. Does this person improve the team? And for me, at the moment, yes, he does. He and I think the fans play off that as well, because like you just said, he encourages the team up more. He wins balls in the air, which is what we've seen all season not happen. Hwang doesn't jump either. Going back to Alex's point about JSL not jumping, which is true. Hwang doesn't jump either. So there is you kind of, I'm sure you guys remember back in the day, Wolves, 1-0 up, last 10 minutes, what happens? We go, woo, way back, and we trench in and invariably concede. This, he brings us up the pitch because the players are confident that when they get there, the ball's still going to be there, not coming back at them. And I think that for me is the big thing.
I think he's even running the channels. You know, yesterday he was running channels. Even when the ball doesn't get, he is doing it, and we know he can finish. You know, the goals he scored in the League Cup suggest that he can finish. You know, he scored the goal against Everton, against Chelsea, and was it Chelsea at home as well? He can finish. So, you know, at some point the ball will get to him in the right area, and he will score. And he's had some chances he's missed where he's sort of arrived a bit early or a bit late for sort of headers. He should have scored against West Ham. That's a miraculous save. That's the only reason he didn't score that goal. He's doing more. He's doing more than enough to keep his place. Again, regardless of the little competition he's got because of what Larson had not been giving us. I definitely think it's made a difference in terms of our upturn in form is clearly linked to the fact that Tolu has been playing and Larson hasn't. Yeah.
I think so. I mean, there's a comment here from Paul. Paul, I'm going to thank you for your comment. I know Paul's obviously commenting here just to say, like, is Tolu in just because we don't like Strand Larson? And, you know, Strand Larson got us a point in this game. Okay, Strand Larson had an assist. Fine, accept that. I think what we're trying to say, Paul, is that if you look at our general play over the last few games when Tolu's been in, we're a lot more positive and we're able to progress more further up the pitch, because we've got a player that's able to hold the ball up and bring other players into the game, not just have someone who kind of runs around and looks there. So we're not saying Strand Larson is a poor player. What we're saying is for the tactics and where we sit at the moment, Tolu is a better contributor and the team is improved because of the way Tolu comes into the team. Moving on. So we've got not one, but two gentlemen sending us off to talk through. Well, one's a second booking, but it's still a sending off. Well, I'm going to get you all your opinions on this because this has created, obviously, a significant amount of noise in social media with a number of Everton fans, obviously then going off clipping Hwang's tackle and all kinds of stuff. This one seems to have created, I think the Grealish one's a bit more cut and dried, and I'm grateful for that one being the second one. I think what we're looking at here is a hair pull, right? And there's plenty of precedent for this, as has also been demonstrated. This is probably what I was referring to as dark arts, but I'm going to ask all three of you your thoughts in terms of, do you think it's a red card? Would you be disappointed if that was given against us? And is this something where I think it's just, it's fine, it's a red card, you shouldn't be pulling people's hair, full stop, get on with it. Alex, I'm going to go to you first. Your thoughts, first of all, is it red, and would you be disappointed if it was a red given against us? Or is it Michael Keane? As I've just noticed Dan's clipped his Michael Keane, you dickhead tweet in the picture. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's not a late challenge, is it? It's not a poor tackle. Like, what's going through his head at the time to do it? Like, I mean, what, as he's going up for that header, what part of his head is thinking, yeah, I'm going to pull his hair? Like, what type of, and especially in today's modern game, when there's cameras everywhere and he's obviously going to go to VAR. I mean, at the time in the ground, and me personally, where we were stood, we didn't really know what was going on. So we were all a little bit confused. Who is it for? Is it for them? Is it for us? And then you could see Tolu kind of like pulling on his hair. So you're thinking, well, what have we missed here? And then obviously it starts to get around what had happened. Yeah, it's just stupid. It's obviously a red card. It's stupid. You'd be pissed off, wouldn't you, if that was your own player to do it? Because it is stupidity, really. Yeah.
Tom, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's, by letter of the law, it's a red card. You know, do I want to see players sent off for that? You know, I don't know, maybe not. It maybe wouldn't have happened, 5+ years ago. But I don't get all this defence of him. Like, if you want to talk about contribution as well, I think he was getting shirty because Tolu was winning a lot in the air, and he's probably used to winning, 80-90% of his duels, and he had to find a way to try and get, his way on Tolu because it wasn't the conventional way, wasn't working. And we all know what him and Tarkowski are like. It's just, again, I don't, you always think does reputation have a part to play in this sort of thing? Probably not as Keane's concerned, but some other players may be. But yeah, I don't see. It's by letter of the law, it's a red card, and that's all that matters. And obviously, I think some defence was that he was aiming for his shirt and he got his hair or some bollocks. But like, what difference does it make? He's not got his shirt. He's pulled his hair. It's like if you make a tackle on a man, miss the ball and hit his leg, it's still a foul. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if that defence just doesn't hold up for me.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, out of the law, it's a red card. Would I be annoyed if it's against us? I'd be more annoyed at the player than I would have been the referee if it was against us. Put it that way.
Ali, you 3-3, or have you got a different perspective?
Yeah, I don't get me wrong. I think all the fans in the crowd certainly were surprised, or we didn't know what it was for. None of us had any idea what it was for. I saw Tolu sort of gesturing as he was sort of moving to the screen. I thought, I was just glad at that point it wasn't a Wolves player about to get sent off. I wasn't sure what it was for. But yeah, I'm learning now. Dale Johnson's done his little article on the BBC. I've had my odd interaction with him on X, and yeah, apparently it is deemed violent conduct to pull hair. Yeah. So it is a red card. Moyes' interview to try and sort of say it wasn't deliberate is just fucking brilliant, isn't it? I mean, my 6-month-old daughter can deliberately knows is grabbing hair now deliberately. You can't indeliberately grab somebody's hair. No. That's just absolute nonsense. Yeah, I mean the picture tells it. He was obviously doing it deliberately. Yeah. And he got caught. So yeah, it's a red card.
Perfect. I think we're all in alignment there, which I think was always going to be the case. And a slightly more entertaining one. The second red, obviously for our friend Mr. Grealish. For the sarcastic applause. And I think that is something along with the waving of the yellow cards that I know that was kind of briefed quite heavily by ref, the PGMOL, get my teeth in, out to the clubs and that at the beginning of the season. So, and let's be honest, this is a new ref who is going to be looking to, apply the letter of the law, to kind of justify his appearances. He may not be, one that's going to kind of let it go, let it play out. So I'll go in reverse order this time, Ali. Thoughts? Definite. Yeah, second yellow, off you go. Very silly. I'd also like to extend that out as well to say, I'd like to get your thoughts on how Wolves managed Jack Grealish. He's obviously there, in a weird way, he's their creator, kind of their bit of their talisman, really. So I'd like to get your thoughts. First of all, was it sending off? And then second of all, your thoughts on not Grealish's performance necessarily, but how we managed Jack Grealish yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, it was a sending off. I mean, even Moyes didn't defend him, so that's if David Moyes isn't defending you're bang to rights. If you've followed his career in the last 20 years, that was a red card. He should have pulled his hair. Somebody, and then maybe got it the other way around. But no, that was a red card. And I actually thought Grealish was the standout player for them by a mile. I when I've been sort of chatting to my mates today who are Everton fans, sort of saying, for me, he was their best player by a country mile. I thought Jackson did okay against him, but not brilliant. I did feel every time he gets the ball, or I shouldn't say this on a podcast, but I thought he looked good. He clearly is a very good. He's a class player, and I thought Jackson did okay, but not really. You rely with Jackson with his pace, don't you? And you think he's a good one-on-one defender. I'm no doubt we're going to get onto at some point his ability going forwards. But as a one-on-one defender, you think he's got that's his skill. But I think Grealish had the better of him. Yeah. Generally in the game, I thought Grealish played well. It's just the fact that he's surrounded by players around him at Everton at the moment. With Njai and Dewsbury Hall, and there are other players who are better than that. He hasn't got anyone to play off. So I think we did okay managing him, but I still felt when he got the ball, he was clearly a threat. He put a few good crosses in, and I said he was winning a lot of free kicks in the first half, where they were having their joy. So no, we didn't do brilliantly managing him, but didn't score, did he? So, and he got sent off. So happy days.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom, your thoughts sending off? Yeah, and I guess for me, slightly different question for you. Second part, is this probably where Wolves missed a trick in terms of that Premier League experience in this transfer window? Everton went out and, like Ali's just said, you've got Dewsbury Hall, you've got Grealish, players that are familiar with the Premier League alongside their kind of mainstays. that have been obviously here for a number of seasons. Do you think that's a trick that we missed and has ultimately impacted our squad and season?
Absolutely, 100%. I think I made reference to it last time I was on. There's, it's not a surprise if you look at they've got three players that stand out for me in the summer for them that they signed. So Shrewsbury, Hall, Grealish, and that Barry up front. So Shrewsbury, Hall, and Grealish hit the ground running that brilliant first few games. Barry looks awful. He may well be good, but he didn't know the league, and he's come in. They're taking a punt on him. But we signed 6 Barrys basically. Players who ultimately, was just a gamble. Krejci looks like he's paid off. Arias, maybe not last night, but generally looks like he's improving and could be a threat. Same with Wolf. Tolu, another one. But we left ourselves so far behind that it was, it was just never going to work. It was just too late. So it was just poor. We've banged this drum consistently. The recruitment was appalling in the summer, but Jeff Shee thought it was a good window, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, the now departed Jeff Shee, I hasten to add.
Yeah.
Alex, slightly different one for you. Would like to get your perspective. I think it's going to be another 3 for 3, which is great. He should have gone. What I'd like to get your perspective on is, did we do all that we can after the second sending off to get the winner, or were there things like, I know there was a lot of confusion and questions around, obviously we ended up with 2 right wing backs in the kind of injury time when we had Lima and Chachua on. Do you think that Rob set us up, or did we miss an opportunity? Could we have done something slightly differently after the second sending off to ultimately get the 3 points as opposed to the 1 point we settled for?
I mean, firstly, I'm happy it's a red card. I mean, I don't mind Grealish personally, and I'd be a little bit annoyed if that was our player, but you take it. And again, I think, how long was it after he got sent off? It was extra time. It probably had a good 15 minutes, wasn't it, with the extra time? I think it was 9 minutes.
Yeah, we had 9 minutes of injury time. Yeah.
And then, I don't know, we still had another 2 subs. So when he brings on Lima, you're kind of thinking, well, again, could you have brought somebody else on again, Fer Lopez? But you look at the bench and you're thinking there's nobody else. Do you stick Matt Doherty up front? He's still yet to play there, and just hope the ball falls to him and go all out. And then, obviously, they're quite good at the dark arts, so they were just wasting as much time as they could. Pickford was taking ages to take his goal kick, so that was obviously what they were going to do. So maybe we could have been a little bit more brave, because I don't think they would have attacked and tried to get the win. But knowing the Wolves this season, I wouldn't have been surprised if they were to have got the winner. But yeah, I kind of looking at the bench thinking he hasn't really got much else to throw on, has he? To be honest. Yeah.
Ali, I'm going to loop you in here. I think so. Rob was asked about Lima, and the reason he gave for bringing Lima on was because of his crossing ability. So he said that was the option. I think it did cause confusion, though, in my opinion, that there was 2 right. They were kind of like there, and it was like, well, who's doing what? We've also seen Santi sneak up front a few times towards the end of games. Would that be something that you would have entertained and just, really put it in the mixer? He was also guilty of a silly foul, which, as Alex talked about, the dark arts in terms of winding the time out, which they did very well for 9 men. What would you have done it? I can see there's a comment here in terms of about potentially putting Lopez on as well. Just as another attacking option. What would you have done in that situation if you're Rob Edwards going into that injury time? What would you do? What would you have done anything differently?
I heard Edwards' interview, and he sort of said, he's impressive with our crossing, and we thought if we give him one, maybe he'll whip it in. But like you, when he actually came on, you could see him and Chachua speaking to each other, and Chachua hadn't got a clue why we're bringing on someone to play the same position as him. So I can't remember who actually Lima came on for. Someone will have to tell me who he came on for. I should see it on the screen. Yeah, he came on for Hwang, didn't he? He might as well have brought him on for Chachua if they're going to play the same position. But I just felt as though, and I think Edwards alluded to it himself, that when they went down to 9, we kind of played into their hands. We just lumped the ball into the box. And actually, if you're going to be down to 10 or 9 men, the one thing that you can still do and particularly if you're Everton and you've got Keane and Tarkowski, which is this also Keane and Goff, sorry, you got sort of Tarkowski and Jake O'Brien. Their bread and butter is heading the ball, isn't it? And just defending the penalty area and then heading the ball out. And it just felt like we needed to stretch them more, and actually, rather than just chucking it in the box, actually get it down a bit and play it into the box, because you've got such a great numerical advantage. Use it, and by just lumping it in, you're not using it because it levels out. So yeah, that was like my sort of frustration at the end, going that actually we didn't make the most of the numerical advantage because we just chucked it in the box. And so whether bringing Lima on helped or didn't help with that, or whether bringing Lopez on would have helped or not, I actually thought when I heard sort of Edwards' interview about it, I thought when we said, we were sort of putting Lima on to give them the message that you need to cross it from different areas. And I was like, could you not have just told them? Because someone go down and just say, stop fucking crossing it from 50 yards back, and actually stretch them. Because the one time, Bueno dropped a shoulder, that's where the chance came from. That was a bit peculiar to me, but I'm not a Premier League manager, so how you get messages across, I don't know.
Well, football's a game of opinions, so we're all, and this is why we do what we do, because we're here to give our opinion and our thoughts.
I've got a really weird, conspiracy theory. It might be bollocks, but I'm not sure if Edwards put Lima on so that he couldn't be then loaned out by the club or sold by the club, because he can only now play for us or Porto. So it took the decision out of the ownership's hands. It's probably unlikely, but that sort of did cross my mind a little bit. That doesn't explain why he came on for playing mind, but I can understand why he got put on the pitch.
Yeah, I think for me, I'll come on to transfers and stuff in a sec, and I'll get your perspectives on that. I think for me, we've talked a lot at the start about the right wing back position. And let's be honest, no one's really covered themselves in glory there. Doc's been solid, but his legs are catching him out there now. Chachua, we can do a whole show on him, I think, between the four of us, in terms of what he doesn't do and what he should be able to do, given his physical attributes, and Hoover's about to disappear out. So I think that says all we need to know from there. So I think Rob's just, he's had a go with Mane, and let's be honest, he's come up trumps. He's at jackpot with that one. It feels like it might be a similar activity with Lima. Can this guy come up trumps and stuff? Bearing in mind, he was highly rated. He was, we obviously there was a lot of news that we snatched him from under the nose of Chelsea. And he's got some pedigree there. So let's see. Talking of that, and before I move on to Shrewsbury, I'm going to put the little image Dan's put up about us gaining in on the 11 points of Derby and the 12 points of Southampton. And a little, for those of you who are watching, you can see a bit of a Steve McQueen Great Escape in a Wolves shirt. Are you, three of you, confident now that, all being well, we should clear past? Obviously, there was a lot of concern we weren't going to get past 11 or 12 points. Obviously, we are starting to pick up points with more regularity now. I'm not saying we're going to stay up. I'm not that delirious. But are we confident that we are going to get to a more respectable points total, shall we say?
So 14.
14, perfect.
No, I think we'll get there. I don't think we'll stay up now, to be honest. I think the gap's a bit too big. I think you're relying on a ridiculous run that nobody has ever done before. But yeah, I'm quite confident we could maybe reach the 20-point mark. And again, you're probably still a bit away, aren't you?
Yeah.
Maybe not 20, 18, 19, maybe. Being a bit optimistic.
Ali, I guess the transfer window's been open a week, and with the potential departure, it's not confirmed yet, of Hoover, there's obviously no other outgoings or incomings. Does that surprise you at all, or is that what you're expecting to see, particularly with Jeff going and Nathan coming in and this, that, and the other? And obviously, there's been a lot of rumours that we're going to have to sell to buy potentially. How true that is, I don't know. What are your thoughts? Are you surprised that we haven't done any business yet?
Yeah, a little bit. I shouldn't be, should I? Because you can't trust Wolves to do anything. So the fact that Edwards had come in and said, we want to do something. You would have thought that given our situation, that pretty early on in January they'd have got a few things lined up if it was going to happen. So yeah, I am surprised, but we shouldn't be, should we? Because it's Wolves and our recruitment has been that terrible for so many years. I thought it was really interesting to decide what makes a good window, and it is just I've got no idea because we're in such a peculiar position. I think we probably will. I think Larson will probably go. There seems so much noise about it. I don't think I'll be too sad about that. And then the rest of it is just, can we get anyone in to just give us something to the end of the season? But yeah, no, I'm a bit surprised we've done absolutely nothing, and there doesn't seem any rumours flying around. It's all just sort of. But I mean, Edwards must have known this is what was going to would happen, because it's happened to every other manager before him. There's no reason that's going to change.
Yeah, I agree. Tom, though, do you think, I'm just thinking of a variable here, do you think that AFCON and the number of players that are away, we're seeing quite a few more youngsters generally in Premier League subs benches recently. Do you think AFCON's having an impact on the transfer window, that clubs are kind of, because you've got a flux of players that are out at the moment, do you think that's impacting clubs' ability to do business and they're waiting for players to come back before they decide who they're going to kind of bring in and ship out? Or do you think that's just not really a variable and it's just...
That sounds like a Jeff Shee excuse, mate, to be honest. Maybe, but it's not stopped certain clubs, has it?
No.
It's always the same. So other clubs seem to do it, we never do. It's just the way it is, unfortunately, under Fosun. When we were in the shits with Lopetegui, it didn't stop them then. We signed players before the window even opened in that window. So I will say that it is, again, I said this last time, it is a very tricky window for us in regard to, stick or twist. I can't see him going big because I just think it's just the gap's just way too big now. But there's got to be players out there that you could bring in to improve the squad, if nothing else, So we should be doing something at the very least. We need pace in the forward areas. That's been glaringly obvious all season. The news of Rodri coming back is obviously good. I think if you get him and Lima on the right hand side, I think that could be good. That could solve that one problem that we've got there. But I do definitely think we need someone, in the Hwang mould, as in profile, to help us up top.
Yeah. Right. Moving on to the last bit, which is looking forward to Saturday. So we start our FA Cup journey for the season on Saturday with a local team. We've got Shrewsbury Town at home. Early kickoff, just as a heads up for people on Saturday. 12:15 kickoff against a struggling Shrewsbury team. So for those of you who are watching at the moment or can't see on the screen, Shrewsbury are in 22nd place, just above the relegation zones in League Two, on 19 points. So not having a great season. And it's one where actually Wolves are odds on to win a game. So for those of you who are betting nature and again can't see, Wolves are 5-1 on. What I'd like to get from you guys is, obviously this is going to be a big game for them. They're going to be coming with nothing to lose, cup final, if you will, although I don't like that phrase. It's a bit belittling. But, they're going to be coming. They've got nothing to lose. This will be a welcome distraction from their league challenge at the moment. I guess questions for you are going to be based around, Alex, what do you think Rob's going to do on Saturday? Do you think he's going to ring the changes, maybe like goalkeepers, certain positions, or do you think he's going to try and keep that consistency going, keep that running? Bear in mind we've got a bit of an extra gap until Newcastle next. What do you think What do you think Rob's going to do? Is he going to stick with what he's got, or do you think he's going to make some changes?
You'd like to see a few changes, wouldn't you? Maybe one of the change goalkeepers come in, maybe give Lima and Lopez a start, and then I'd like to see Mane rested, to be honest, and just give him a bit of breathing space. You've got to wrap him in cotton wool, haven't you, at the minute? So you'd like to see, I don't want him to go completely Alex Ferguson and play the reserves, because then it could be quite humiliating, can't it, really? And It's not like Wolves to give a bit of charity to clubs struggling. So you'd like to see us go a little bit further. I mean, there was somebody by me on Saturday who was like, we don't want to get involved in that, do we? You distract us from the league. And I think, well, that's kind of what you want, isn't it? Really, is a distraction from the league. If we can get to the 5th round, maybe 6th round, and you breathe that positivity and that confidence in the team, it's only good news, really, isn't it? If you're losing to Shrewsbury in the cup, it's humiliating, and it creates a bit more of a toxic environment. So, I mean, whatever team we put out, it should be a strong enough team to play Shrewsbury, shouldn't it? But it's the FA Cup at the end of the day.
Particularly at home as well, let's be honest. We know sometimes with away FA Cup games you go and it's like the old Parks pitches and everything's dug up and it's all over the place and it's there. I mean, back when Shrewsbury played at the old game meadow, that obviously used to flood quite a lot, being by the river, and then it would be playing on a right pitch. But at home in particular, where you've got the nice wide pitch, good quality pitch to play on, there shouldn't be any excuses. Your thoughts, Ali, in terms of, think Rob's going to make the changes, or let's put it another way, if you were Rob, would you bring the changes, and what kind of changes would you make going into that?
Yeah, I think he will. I mean, certainly Mane, I think, will come out. Rob said it, didn't he, in the press conference, that he could tell they were knackered, and that was sort of was an explanation of the first half performance. Regardless of what you said, the Christmas period is a busy period.
Yeah,
it's traveling as well.
Yeah.
I think, and I think playing, we're not. We are literally playing a team who are terrible in League Two. We're not talking about a team who's sort of top of the Championship or sort of going at it. I appreciate it's a big game for them, but we are talking about a team who's 22nd in League Two. So, and on top of that, I think he can make changes without sort of not completely playing the kids. He's not playing the under-21s. You can play, Moller Wolf can come in. I said Rodrigo Gomez, who hasn't played, can come in. Pedro Lima could come in. Andre could come in. You could bring in a Brazilian international who hasn't been starting recently. Strand Larsen should definitely be coming in. These are the type of players who can come into the starting lineup, who are Premier League players, and while still resting sort of your likes of your Manes and whoever else who's played a lot recently who needs that rest. So, I think there will be a mishmash of sort of the team that played last night and has been played the last few weeks. But I would guess sort of you're talking 6, 7, 8 changes, aren't you? Probably from the team that started the other day. You could imagine like a Bueno or probably not Mosquera because he got nicked, didn't he? But Bueno or maybe Krejci or something like that. A couple of those kind of guys might stick around, might start, but otherwise a lot will come out.
What about Chirua? Hopefully I pronounced his name right. He came on as a sub, didn't he, in the West Ham game? Would he be another one you'd potentially bring into that Mane role? Or, is he one? There was also a bit of noise around Fletcher Holman. Maybe you could have him on the bench. Or would you rather have the safety of having maybe Tolu stay, not start, but be on the bench as an option should things not be going according to plan?
I don't want Torreira anywhere near the starting 11. He's just nowhere near good enough, unfortunately. Putting him in for Mane is like replacing Semedo with Chachua. It's just not. Yeah. It's not a like for like change. If we're winning and he wants a few minutes at the end, then fair enough. But I'd do a mix like Ali said. There's no point in players that you just know aren't good enough for this football club. Obviously Hoover's gone now. He'd have been one. Johnston, you can put him in if you want, but we know he's not good enough. So what's the point? Torreira was another one. I don't think there's any point in giving minutes to players that you just already know are just not good enough, unless you're running the risk of injuries for potential players that are good enough. But like Ali said, you'd expect Lopez to come in, Larsen to come in, Rodri, Lima, Wolf. So there you go. I mean, you've got 5 players there. I know Lima and Rodri, that maybe they'll have 45 each, because I'm guessing they're playing a similar role. Bentley could potentially come in, but again, he's in that mould as well. He's just not good enough to be at this football club. But it'll be a mix, no doubt. Okay.
Right. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for your thoughts tonight. That's been very useful and insightful as always. Let's see what he goes with. It could be a real interesting selection come Saturday, and we see what he go with. I think Alex is right though. We've just got to win and get through that game. I think a cup run would be a welcome distraction for us. I think, let's be honest, and I think for me as well, it's about building momentum right now. And even if it's a win will be a win, and we can then use that to move forward. So thank you very much, gents, for your thoughts and impact tonight. That's been really useful and insightful. Thank you to everyone who's been joining, dropping their comments in the chat. As always, that's really great. And we will see you on the next episode, where we'll be reviewing the FA Cup game on Saturday. Last but not least, up the Wolves. Thank you very much. Cheers, everyone.